can!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Struck down the middle. So a good performance.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right on the show today, Saudi's clout in the sporting world increases despite protests across the world. Will sporting governing bodies put their foot down, or will they toe the Saudi line? What are they doing to keep all of the protesters quiet? Meanwhile, Shakib Al Hasan's passage to Bangladesh still is getting more strained by the day. Fresh reports say Shakib's fans protesting his ouster from the Test squad were attacked by an angry mob outside the stadium. Are the sentiments of Bangladeshis still anti-Shakib? And over in Formula One, McLaren is miffed with the penalty being awarded to their driver Lando Norris. It's increased the gap in the driver standings between them and Max Verstappen. But instead of taking that podium finish, in fact, Verstappen seems to be showing signs of getting more ruffled and bothered as McLaren got under his skin. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. Starting with cricket, New Zealand's star batter Kane Williamson will miss the second Test match against India in Pune. Williamson is still recovering from the groin injury he suffered during the Sri Lanka series. Williamson is currently recovering at home and didn't travel with the squad. New Zealand versus India's second Test will commence on the 24th of October. And staying with cricket, South Africa's Kagiso Rabada joined an elite list of bowlers to have taken 300 Test wickets. He achieved this milestone mark during the first Test against Bangladesh in Dhaka. Rabada is the fastest to this landmark in terms of the balls bowled. The pacer took 11,817 deliveries to get there. England have announced their ODI squad for the West Indies series. The interesting inclusion is that of wicketkeeper batter Michael Pepper. If Pepper is included in the 11, he might bat alongside Phil Salt. The first ODI will take place in Antigua and Barbuda on October 31st. The 2026 Glasgow Commonwealth Games have dropped sporting disciplines like cricket, badminton, squash, hockey and table tennis. It's a major dent to India's medal-winning chances as the country won 30 out of their 61 medals along these sporting events. And it was at the 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. And we'll sum it up with news from football. Neymar returned to competitive football after 369 days for Saudi club Al Hilal. The Brazilian was recovering from a knee injury that he sustained in October last year. Neymar failed to make an impact, but his team defeated Al Ain 5-4 in the Asian Champions League match. Saudi Arabia's hostile takeover of major sporting events has come with its fair share of controversies. The more power Saudi wants to wield in the sporting world, the more backlash they tend to receive. Protesters and those who strictly stand against the Saudi shopping spree in the sporting world call this sports washing. But the new tool Saudi is using to cover up any shred of controversy that may crop up along the way is throwing money. Take the Six Kings Slam tournament in Riyadh, for instance, an exhibition tennis tournament that featured some of the biggest names: Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, Rafael Nadal and Daniil Medvedev. The winner, of course, was Jannik Sinner, and he took home a crazy $6 million. That is the most in tennis history. Apart from Sinner, all the remaining participants were reportedly promised $1.5 million. Now, the prize money is a shocking amount because none of the major slams will come anywhere close to this amount. In 2024, Jannik Sinner won $3.6 million and $2.1 million after he clinched the US Open and the Australian Open titles. A total of $5.7 million, which still falls short of what Sinner earned in Riyadh for an exhibition event. Carlos Alcaraz won a total of $6 million this year after he won Wimbledon and the French Open. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to win at least 2 Grand Slams to have matched what just 3 days of work in Riyadh amounted to. Sinner had to work hard, play multiple rounds of 2 Grand Slams over 2 weeks each to still end up earning less than what Riyadh ended up giving him. Prize money for 2024 season as far as slams were concerned for Sinner was doubled in a matter of 3 days. If you put it this way, you've got to admit it's an appealing aspect for any sports person. The truth is, no matter how big a sports person is, the average career span for any athlete is about 20, maybe 25 years, and I'm being generous here, 35 to 40-year-old, depending on the sport, of course. So the purpose is to make as much money as possible while they're still playing competitive sport. For Rafael Nadal, for example, he's on the verge of retirement, just announced his last game, in fact. Novak Djokovic, again, last phase of his career as well. So a lucrative Riyadh offer is something very few can actually refuse, which is understandable. They're thinking about life after retirement. What this does is that it shifts focus from the controversy surrounding the sport itself in Saudi. I'll explain. Saudi attracted the biggest names in tennis through this tournament. One of the interesting points to note, the timing of it all. In less than 2 weeks, Riyadh is set to host a women's tennis tournament, the WTA Finals, the prestigious one, an event which has seen massive backlash. Former tennis stars like Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova have outright condemned this move, owing to human rights issues that Saudi is docked with. And despite all the red flags, though, Saudi has managed to bag the rights to host the next 3 editions of the WTA Finals. Reason? The crazy cash prize it has to offer. Last year, WTA Finals that was held in Cancun, Mexico, offered a total cash prize of $9 million. This year, Saudi has agreed to offer $15.25 million. That's a massive difference in price. Once again, Saudi silenced the criticism with the glint of the dollars. So this starry exhibition event with that whopping prize money that Sinner has gleefully taken home was timed perfectly to draw all attention to what is possible, rather than the backlash Saudi is trying to fight. Clearly, for tennis governing body, the sport benefiting is a far greater gain than sports washing. It isn't just tennis that is witnessing this pattern. Take football. In 2021, Saudi's Public Investment Fund, or the PIF, took over English football club Newcastle. Now, the Premier League and the UK government policies forbid the involvement of government intervention in any way in sporting decisions. PIF, though, is a platform that is used to invest on behalf of the Saudi government because it is controlled by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. But the $400 million Newcastle takeover went through after the Premier League were reportedly given a legally binding assurance that Saudi state wouldn't be controlling Newcastle. But now leaked messages suggest that the deal went through only because of the involvement of bin Salman, as he was the one signing off on all of the key decisions. The deal is now set to be re-examined by the UK government because of this leak. The Premier League, though, is reportedly holding its ground, that the Saudi government never really influenced any of these decisions. The English football's governing body says there is no need for any investigation, and given the massive takeover, it's little unlikely that the ownership will be revoked at this point, because Saudi's money has certainly benefited the Premier League. Newcastle's rise has meant English football got another club to leverage and attract star players, which only means more sponsorship deals and more TV rights, ticketing sales going up. It isn't just club football where Saudi has taken over. Even at the international stage, Saudi is making giant strides. Saudi Aramco, the country's national oil company, was announced as a worldwide partner with FIFA earlier this year. Because of the deal, Saudi will hold sponsorship rights for the 2026 men's and the 2027 women's World Cups. But this deal has faced severe flack, as more than 100 women footballers from around 24 countries have signed an open letter addressed to FIFA. The letter urges the governing body to end the deal because of Saudi's stance of women's rights and the human rights issues, of course. The value of the Aramco deal was not disclosed, but it is likely to be the richest ever for FIFA, considering Aramco reportedly made a profit of $121 billion just last year. So will FIFA take any action on this letter? Because it isn't just this deal that FIFA needs to think about. Saudi Arabia is also set to host the 2034 Men's FIFA World Cup. Because of these major deals, FIFA is getting the financial gains to run the sport on a larger scale. FIFA clearly sitting on very shaky ground because on one hand is the moral obligation that any governing body needs to uphold, and the other, financial gains that go into benefiting the running, the growth and the development of sport across the world. Saudi has attracted major stars like Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, Neymar, Sadio Mane through mega contracts. And when stars like Ronaldo end up praising Saudi and its footballing culture, it leaves an impact. If these players are endorsing Saudi football, it immediately positions the country as the new hub for the sport. Saudi's objective is clear. They are trying to quash all voices, all protests by the show of money and the promise of a better future for sports and the sports persons. But how long can this vision run its course? It is beginning to feel more and more gloomy for Shakib Al Hasan. His fate and the last stretch of his cricket career seems to be hanging in the balance. Shakib was all but set to make his space in Mirpur for what would have been his farewell test. That's already underway. But angry fans back home have ensured that Shakib would not take a step into his own country. The latest is that a large group of Shakib fans were attacked outside the stadium after they protested against Shakib getting replaced in the test squad to play South Africa. Is this the end of the road for one of Bangladesh's greatest?
The first test between Bangladesh and South Africa is underway in Mirpur. If all had gone according to plan, cricket fans would have witnessed Shakib Al Hasan in his elements, and that too at his home ground for one final time. But the narrative has been otherwise. After massive protests against Shakib's inclusion, the Bangladesh Cricket Board and the government were forced to counteract. They conveniently advised him from returning home, and the BCB, under growing unrest, replaced him in the squad for the test. But that doesn't seem to have quelled the general animosity. A bunch of Shakib supporters who were protesting outside the stadium, calling for him to be included again and for the cricketer to play his farewell test at least, were brutally attacked. A huge group assaulted Shakib's fans with sticks and bamboos. All of this was going on outside the stadium, even as cricketers were present inside. Army personnel had to quickly intervene to ensure matters did not turn ugly. This is the latest in a string of events that has led to a situation where Shakib is unable to even enter his own country. The trouble for the cricketer began along with the student protests that rocked Bangladesh a few months ago. His political ambitions and his allegiance with the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awami League has brought his cricketing career to a bit of a standstill. Shakib was forced to announce his retirement, with the ICC Champions Trophy being his last one-day tournament. All he wanted was to play a test at home, his last. Ever since he was named in that FIR in a murder case along with 147 others, including Sheikh Hasina, Shakib has had a torrid time. The fact that he did not say a word and kept silent while his country was burning and witnessing a political turmoil only heightened the anger that Bangladeshis were already experiencing. They do not want one of Bangladesh's best cricketers to come back, leaving Shakib in the most difficult of predicaments. He even sent out a lengthy apology to his people, the citizens of Bangladesh, in a last-ditch effort to try and get a chance to play at home. But that clearly did not work. Bangladeshis are fuming, and this recent attack on his supporters outside the cricket stadium is proof that everyone is still seething, leaving many to wonder if the world has seen the last of this genius all-rounder. Sure, he will be able to play outside his country, but pity that Shakib Al Hasan may not get the farewell he wishes and probably deserves.
Max Verstappen and Red Bull breathed a sigh of relief after the driver finished third at the US Grand Prix over the weekend. It was not a win, but a third-place finish was enough for Verstappen to extend his lead over Lando Norris of McLaren in the driver's standings. That gap has now increased to 57 points. And despite getting the desired result, the Red Bull driver continues to cry foul. Verstappen's third-place finish has been mired in controversy. Initially, it was McLaren's Lando Norris who had come in third. But the British driver was given a 5-second penalty by the stewards for a mistake he had supposedly committed during the race. McLaren was furious on losing that third-place finish.
My view is that the way the stewards interfered with a beautiful piece of motorsport was inappropriate. I'm surprised that the stewards didn't even feel the need to discuss with the drivers after the race. Both cars gained an advantage. It's a shame because it cost us a podium. This kind of decision by the stewards cannot be appealed. For us, the chapter is now closed.
McLaren's team principal, Andrea Stella, pointing out his displeasure over the matter. But before I get into what Verstappen's reaction was, let me tell you what led to the controversy in that first place. The incident occurred in the 52nd lap of US Grand Prix with 4 laps to go for completion. That's when Lando Norris attempted to overtake and pass Max Verstappen. Both cars ended up running off the track. Norris got ahead and stayed there for the rest of the race. And since he overtook Verstappen outside the tracks, as you can see there, and didn't give Verstappen the lead back, the McLaren driver was penalized. But what McLaren are arguing here is that it was Verstappen who forced both drivers to go outside the tracks. So Norris was forced to overtake outside of it because of Verstappen's maneuvering. The way Verstappen was driving, Norris would have crashed into Verstappen, and he had to overtake, and that's what happened. And if he had to overtake within the track, the crash would have happened. So McLaren is claiming that it was actually Verstappen's wrongdoing, which is why both driver and the team are furious over the penalty that they received. They believe it wasn't just Norris who was entirely at fault here. Quite normal from a rival after losing that podium place. But Verstappen here feels that McLaren are complaining just a bit too much.
They complain a lot lately, but it is very clear and it is in the rules. If you are outside the white line, you cannot pass, and I've been penalized for that in the past too.
If McLaren's accusations are considered, Verstappen is at fault too, because had he not forced Norris out of the track, the situation of the penalty itself would not have arisen. Sure, what Verstappen did was well within the rules of racing, but it's also considered a bit of a move. The driver making the most of the loopholes available for him, something Norris pointed out.
He defends by going off the track. He overtakes by going off track. But I'm not going to complain about it.
It's interesting to note that during the weekend, this was the second decision that went in Red Bull and Verstappen's favour. Before the race, Red Bull was accused by rival teams of making adjustments to the height of their car. While the allegations were serious, FIA let Red Bull walk away without facing any penalty. They were asked to make changes to their car, and that was that. Had FIA put a sanction on Red Bull, it would have affected Verstappen's chances at the US Grand Prix too. And after that, this penalty call, despite everything still going in Verstappen's favour, looks like Verstappen is the one who seems to be complaining a little more. Maybe Verstappen needs to be a bit of a sport here, or maybe all the intensity from McLaren is getting to him. The Red Bull driver just needs to be reminded that he is the one ahead in the race to the finish so far, at least at this point. Time for last serve. Shohei Ohtani isn't just breaking baseball records, but is also getting some celebration goals. He sprayed champagne over his teammates in a crazy celebration after winning the National League Championship Series. Take a look. Yes, that wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll, of course, see you again tomorrow. Till then, do take care. Bye-bye.
Hello and a very